about a single concept, only one thing. And I call it team pooling. So, let's start with a few problems you have, especially as a foreigner coming to Thailand managing Thai staff. It starts the moment you try to talk to them. Some of them, there's a language barrier. Like there's some English skills, maybe some, maybe none, maybe a lot. But at some point there's a language barrier. So there are some problems talking to your staff. Maybe there's also a lack of technical qualification. So you have to work on training staff. Maybe you have to train them in generic terms, or you have to train them for specific tasks. And that's another issue you're facing. Management itself, as in how you assign tasks, how you manage people, how you check on results, how you cooperate with them, is also a different issue you're facing here. And last but not least, also fluctuation of staff. That people come, work for a year, and then they leave the company. So those are some issues you have as a foreigner running a Thai company. I'm pretty sure Thai have similar problems, maybe some are the same, some are different. I want to mainly share my experience today from this background, managing local staff here and managing the problems we have, and how we came up with the solutions. So I'll give you the solution first. What we did is, instead of having...
Take 10 seconds to let everybody, because
sure.
It's really noisy back here.
Run. Okay, so what we came up with is pooling tasks and pooling employees. In other words, we have a team that works, or we have people that used to work on marketing, that used to work on customer service, that used to work on creating products, and there was a specialist for every task. I mean, it's one of the most natural things you do. You have someone who can communicate really well, so that you can work on relations. You have someone who has maybe limited English skills, not able to write complex marketing materials, but they can handle simple customer support issues, so you give them that task. So it's like if someone has a job description, that's the job they're doing. And this guy does this guy does this, and this guy does that. And what we found as a solution is stop putting people into specific tasks. Use all the tasks, mumble them all together, and then use all the people, mumble them all together, and then have one pool of people handle one pool of tasks. So that's it, that's the message. Now, why does that work? I was talking earlier about language barrier being a problem for foreigners managing Thai staff, unless you're perfectly fluent in Thai. Who's perfectly fluent in Thai? Thais, don't need to raise their hands. Okay, so that's a problem. So you explain something to someone who's not native in the language, who has some problems understanding it. Now, here comes a cool trick. If you explain something to one person and they don't understand it, well, then they don't understand it. If you explain something to two people who don't understand it, some of them don't understand this, some of them don't understand that, and they can talk with each other and fill their gaps. Now if you explain it to three people, then probably whatever you say gets understood if they have the ability to communicate with each other. If you communicate the concept, it's easier to teach, or it's easier to train three people than it is to train one person if you have a language barrier, because they can help each other out. But one of them gets it, he can explain it to the others. So this completing each other helps you a lot. If you have people doing the same stuff, you can all train them at once. And instead of having one guy explaining the marketing to one guy and customer service to another guy, you basically explain it all to all of them at once, and they can do the rest for you. They basically overcome the language barrier with combined resources. Another issue is the whole training aspect. You have very specialized tasks. Very often you need someone in IT. Every company does things different. Then you know the know-how you have from university. It might only be very limited applicable. So you have to train people a lot. So if you have one guy who does task A and one guy who does task B, you have to train A guy specifically all the time, and then train B guy all the time. If you have everything pooled, you train them all at once. And the good thing is, if new people come into the team, all the others can train them for you. So you skip the whole training method to a certain degree. In other words, this pooling makes it much easier to train people because they are sharing their know-how. Because now they're all using the same know-how. Maybe one guy no one will be the absolute expert, but this 80-70% know-how they have, they can freely share with others and complete each other. So training is much easier if you have multiple people doing multiple tasks and they all share that among them.
But the task must be related in some way. I mean, it doesn't make sense to train the accounting people together with software developers.
Well, accounting and software development, actually, we didn't do some pooling there as we put people together because the accountant, for example, we did an accounting software project, and the accountants had a very good understanding of the current process and how things are working, and the IT people had a good idea of how IT is working. Put them all together, they'll figure it out. So the main issue when we're talking about pooling, if I may clarify that for a second, is we have, for example, people with similar skill sets. So that's usually where we use it most. Say we, for example, pool customer service, marketing, product management, public relations, basically everything that has to do with any way of communicating and communicating in English is actually all pooled together. So the same guy who does our affiliate marketing also answers customer service emails and finds out about new products that we can make. And actually, so one guy is like 5 people, and they share all those tasks. Also, yes, sorry.
So if they're not Thai, they are all your staff are speaking English very well. Would this work?
You mean if they are not Thai, or if they are Thai?
They are not Thai.
I don't know. I never tried. We only have Thai staff, so I can only talk about Thai staff. I'm not sure how it would work in a mixed environment. So that might be something worth trying. However, it goes further, as in if we're looking at managing a team. You have sometimes difficulties that you don't get enough feedback, that people have a problem, or that they're finished already with something, or that something is too difficult. If you have 4 people doing something, and they're all on the same hierarchy level, they have much less hesitation to ask each other, hey, what's the problem here? How do I do this? So this barrier you have between management and team, and this communication usually needs to go on. How do I do this? Is this finished? Is this what we had in mind? And this is a little bit hard to circumvent. How do we have people who know about the same stuff and do they do together? Then you actually have them do the management. So we actually go as far as having our employees organize their own goals. We have an internal company where we have goal settings, and people edit their own goals and move them and prioritize them, and they do it as a team effort. So in other words, they're also a good part of the management process itself gets taken over by the team. Maybe for a team where you only have 100 employees, you automatically have teams. You automatically have 10 people that do the same stuff. So we actually did it with very few employees by pooling those resources and saying, okay, let's have a team.
How many staff do you have?
We have 20. So
You have a single 20, 30. It's a single team or 20 people?
No, the whole company is actually 19 people.
Okay.
So usually
Do you have? How many tools?
you have 3 pools. It's like
5, 6, 7.
technical, language, and admin. So, I mean, there are some things that you can only do very limited in mix-ups, but especially where there are similar skill sets, you can all mix them together. And don't be afraid of not having a specialist, because that's the next issue. People have a problem with fluctuation. It's not uncommon for people after university in Thailand to go to a company, work for a year, switch companies, work for a year to gather some experience, to see some other things. Now the cool part, if you have a team of 5 people who all share the same task, if one leaves, okay, so you have 20% less capacity, but it's not like the only guy who does this and the only guy who knows something about this is the company. So the loss for the company is much, much lower. Because when the new guys come in, the other 4 can train him. So it's actually a good way to deal with fluctuation. If I would give all my know-how about, say, affiliate marketing to one guy, he would be a specialist, would be great, he would know a lot about it. But the moment he leaves, I have to train the next guy from scratch. If I share my know-how with the whole team, and one of them leaves, and I have a new person coming in, they do the training. So it helps a lot dealing with fluctuation. Passively, as when it happens, but also actively. We found out that people enjoy much more to work together with others in a project. So there's much more interaction. If you have specialists for one topic and specialists for another topic, of course they will talk a little bit. Like, okay, the customer service guy will ask the product guy some questions, but that's just brushing a little bit against each other. However, they're both doing the same task. You have a lot of interaction, making for a much more pleasant atmosphere, so we have seen that satisfaction among staff has increased a lot. So that was...
You said you've got 98 staff and 3 pools. Does each pool have like a team leader? Do they manage themselves? Is it totally cooperative? Or do you manage them? How does it work?
How do we manage?
How do you manage them? Yeah. Do they have like one team leader for one pool?
We have team leaders. Basically, we communicate, we discuss, especially if we discuss from top-down goals, when we have specific goals that the team should reach, we will discuss that with the team leader. The team leader then works with the team to assign how they're going to reach the team to coordinate. This is more like a team coordinator.
The funny thing is that people sometimes argue that if you say, yeah, now 2 people are working on the same task, they will say, yeah, that means you double the workforce, that's not efficient anymore, you're wasting money. But I think, that's my experience, that sometimes 2 people are faster and the result is much better if they work together.
I think result-wise, that's definitely correct. I mean, it's mathematical. It's very mathematical terms. We're all IT people, so most of them. So you get things 90% correct, and another person gets something 90% correct as well. So statistically, together combined, they probably get it 99% correct, because the 10% that the first guy got incorrect, there's a 90% chance that the other guy gets those correct and the other way around. So in other words, the loss of quality is much lower. To give you a more practical example, we have people writing English language text. We actually don't have a single native English speaker in our company. Yet, by having actually 3 people who speak very good English work as a team and they edit each other's work, the outcome of the result is top-notch. So actually to combined efforts, it's actually a very high quality result. But the good part is I don't have to get involved. So, because that's also it also reduces a lot of workload for management. They can fix their own problems.
You mentioned about the language barrier and the pooling of the staff. How about the difference in culture? Did you face any problem with it?
It's a little bit difficult to judge because we came up with this about after 2 years of being here, so culture already is maybe do you have any specific culture issue in mind?
About non-verbal, because for the native people, we can understand the non-verbal, like the figure, but for the foreigner, I don't know.
Maybe there again, it's a help if you have several people. Like maybe you have one guy who works very long. Like maybe I have someone on the team who works very long with me and has a better understanding. Okay, this is just a strange foreigner doing things that way, and he can explain that to the team members. The team members won't be afraid to ask him or her. And if I have one person who I go one-on-one with, those misunderstandings are harder to clear up. However, if I have like a group of people and want to say, did you see what he did? And someone else can say, oh wait, it's just, don't worry about it. It's just a...
So you need someone like a connector between you and your staff.
Not really a connector. It's like combined know-how. Like someone who has worked for a foreign company is part of the team, and when the team has discussions, they will pipe up. Or like you profit from the different backgrounds of the team. We have someone who worked for large companies, they can contribute their know-how and say, another one might have worked for foreigners a lot, and they can say, yes, I know how that is. So actually, just like you have combined efforts to overcome the language barrier, you also have combined efforts to overcome the cultural barrier. So you yourself still have to work on that on you personally, but the other side, so to speak, has an easier time because they have 3 people or 5 people trying to understand you.
You said over time feedback as you mentioned before, feedback as in just talking openly about problems or saying, okay, this task is done, it cannot be done because of this and this. Do you think it has improved or has really changed now as a feeling, or it's something different? Is that just to go with the cultural thing?
It improves definitely different effects. One of the times I mentioned we have a team leader who we also pick, of course, who we know they will communicate well, and they are on the same level as a team, so they can aggregate feedback and give it. And when I have individual people, I have to rely on that individual person giving me feedback about that task, because if he is going to do it, no one else knows what he's doing, so no one else is going to do it to me as well. I would like combine, they exchange stuff. They actually, to a certain degree, it's already enough if they get feedback to each other, because then they have a problem, and that would be a good reason to give feedback. And maybe the others, I don't care about that, fix it. I don't even have to know about it. But I also have a feeling that if you have someone as a contact person, a team leader who's very communicative, and you can work well with them, then they can aggregate a lot of the team know-how, and so that works well. But also, if you teach someone one-on-one, it's always boss-employee. If you mingle a team, it's a different atmosphere. Like, people are more relaxed and they're more among others. I think that also encourages people more to speak up.
I asked this question to many foreigners, and then I would like to ask you again. Compared to the Westerners, are we Thai doing good in team working?
So the problem is I can't answer that because I've never managed people anywhere else. So I can tell you about that. I can't. It's difficult. I think the type, the style is different. As in, there are things, you do things different. Just like you drive on the left-hand side of the street and the other side you drive on the right-hand side of the street. If you do it wrong, you crash. But there's nothing inherently good or bad about either of those. So I think you adopt a different style of working, but I wouldn't be able to tell you, okay, Thais are excellent at teamwork and Germans are really bad or so. But I found that I can work very well with teams in Thailand. I can't tell much about working with teams in other countries.
And work with many foreigners as well, and found that that's a little, sometimes Thai people usually very humble. They're not, even though they don't understand. Right? It's kind of like sometimes give wrong impression to foreigners. Do you find any problem with your staff that they don't tend to express their opinion? They try to. There were some people very good at express opinion, and they contribute. A lot of people just keep quiet.
I think one of those issues has a lot to do with people, foreign management coming here and not maybe lacking a little bit of feeling for the different way of feedback. If I tell someone, like some people are saying, people always say yes even though they didn't understand or so. Personally, I feel very different about this. I can, if I have someone tell me, I can tell between you need to maybe pay a little bit closer attention, but actually you do get more information than is commonly said. So, but yeah, you have to work a little bit different. You might not get as direct responses, so you have to condition yourself a little bit for picking up different hints. That's what I recommend to foreigner doing management here.
Maybe tomorrow we should have a session, but instead of having line manager, the way around, how to work with line manager. I hate that. Personally, I hate the word manager because it's not appropriate, I think, especially in web companies. Because we always hear one side of the story, the finance side. I would like to hear the other side. And I ask our employee all the time. And it takes time, but right now, I mean, after a few trials and errors, it's working, and we know exactly what we think every time. And it's the only way to get around it. If you ask them what's the difference between, let's say, Canadian employees and Thai, it's very different, but there's no good way or bad ways. It's just different culture. I mean, a Canadian employee can tell you to, sorry, I'll say it, fuck off, because he's not happy with something. Well, that's not a way to do it, you know. So you cannot judge. No one is better. It's just that you have to work together and find a way to work together. So.
Yeah, and I think that tied into that a lot of Thai employees have told me that they see differences in working with different people. They'll say like whether they prefer working for a Japanese or having a Thai boss versus an American boss or English boss or German boss or a Singaporean boss. And like my wife's friends who work for foreign have different foreigners will compare notes. I'm like, oh, you don't want to work for this guy because he's from country A, and people from country B are one day back and they make better bosses. You don't have to come in at 8 a.m. and work 12 hours. They have their own opinions too, different nationalities.
I want to know about your experience about communication in these pools to you on a higher level. In my experience, happened many times that the local Thai people are too polite to forward bad news to you. Sometimes something really broken, and if you check the record, you see there was warnings before. There was information, but nobody wants to be the messenger of the bad news to you, and you crash because this, if you have this pool, so there's no duty of anyone who need to inform you. What is your experience about your concept?
Good thing is you have a team leader whose head is also on the line. Thing is, it helps to address the issue, as in because more people, there's not only one person looking after something, but there's actually 5 people who will see it at some point. You have the negative effect that, of course, someone will think, okay, someone else will take care of that, and I'm not responsible because therefore others are doing the same thing. If I don't do it, someone else will. But you also have the effect that they say, okay, wait, what are you doing here? And they correct each other's mistake as well. So it balances a little bit. But in general, I think that's one of the management challenges is you have to have your, let's say, fingers or feelers out much more. You have to have a touch much closer on what's going on, and like follow things, pick up more subtle issues. Like whether it's managing staff that you notice that they're not happy because they might not tell you, so you have to notice it, you have to pay much closer attention. And same with business problems, you have to be aware that you still have to be very close to what's going on, as in you can't just sit remotely away and say, okay, they'll handle it.
So you spend a lot of energy for controlling as well?
I spend a lot of energy working together with them, as in instead of talking to one person, I talk to all 4 of them at once, or all 5 of them at once, and tell them, okay, so what's going on? We're looking into different issues. So you don't automatically solve the problem that you don't hear about bad news. Maybe to some degree, but you still have to be close.
I have some comment on that. I think one thing that can help you can promote the culture that it's okay to say bad news. When people are not afraid to give the bad news, and the earlier we know, the better, and people learn to say, oh, it's good to give bad news, and otherwise, if you don't want to be the one who say the bad news, but like your fault, but it's not really.
Right. I mean, that's especially with the team thing. You're always promoting the positive side. You're not using this team to punish one guy, to have one guy stand negatively out. We were like using the positive reinforcements to that. So that also has to do that.
That's a quick question. Do you think that this has helped reduce your turnover rate?
Yes.
Like a lot of Thai companies.
A lot.
So the Thai staff have sort of they like this approach, they like the pooling approach because it seems like culturally, I know Thai people, I'm not very good Thai person. Thai people like to chit chat a lot with each other when they're working. So it seems like this approach would work pretty well, and I thought maybe we would reduce, because you have 5 of them working together, there's going to be a little bit of peer pressure not to go because they're working with their friends. Then I would think that would help.
All of those things they work, but definitely yes, fluctuation has gone down a lot. Actually, the whole idea was suggested by a Thai staff member of us. So she said, okay, let's do this, and I said, oh, that sounds good. And so actually, yes, it reduced a lot because it really makes people more happy to work that way. It really makes it more enjoyable. People don't always leave because it's money is one issue. Like people, if they feel comfortable at their job, if they feel that they like to go to that job, and if you work with others together, it's even more important here than it's anywhere else. But like if you work with others together, it's more enjoyable. It doesn't get boring, which sometimes people feel if they work in a single class. So that helps a lot in the situation. But I think we're out of time. If anyone has any questions about this, please ask me, and I'd like to share. So thank you very much.